The laughter stopped, Grant Mercer's hand halfway to his coat pocket. Across the Mercantile, a little girl stood beside a barrel of flour. One sleeve of her blue dress had split at the elbow. She pressed the tear shut with 2 fingers, while 3 women watched her, as if she were some poor creature behind a fence. Grant knew that dress. More than that, he knew who had paid for a better one every month for 4 years. Keep watch on Grant's right hand. Before long, the whole room would understand why it had stopped moving. Snow scraped against the windows of Red Willow, Colorado, on the last Friday before Christmas, 1887. Inside Fletcher's Mercantile, coal snapped in a black stove. Wet boots left dark marks across the pine floor. 12-year-old Lucy Boone kept her eyes on those marks. Her mother, Sarah, counted 7 pennies on the counter. Her fingers were split from lye soap and Cold Creek water. She needed lamp oil, cornmeal, and 1 spool of blue thread. 7 pennies would not cover all 3. "Leave the thread," Sarah said. Lucy's fingers tightened over the torn sleeve. Near the stove, Mrs. Marjorie Vale lifted a fur collar from her neck. Her husband owned the Red Willow Bank. The 2 women beside her wore new velvet hats from Denver. Marjorie looked Lucy over, from her cracked boots to the faded dress. "That cloth has survived longer than some horses," she said. One woman coughed into her glove, the other gave a thin laugh. Lucy turned toward the flour barrel. The back of her neck reddened above the collar. "Mama fixed it," she said. Marjorie stepped closer. A silver pin flashed beneath her chin. "Then perhaps she should fix it where people cannot see." The women laughed again. Sarah placed her palm over the pennies. Her shoulders rose once, then settled. "Come, Lucy." Grant moved before they reached the door. He was 47, broad through the chest, with trail dust pressed into the seams of his black coat. The Mercer cattle mark stood on half the herds north of Denver. Men lowered their voices when he entered a room. Yet he crossed the store without a word. He stopped beside Lucy and looked at the blue dress. Small white stitches ran along the cuff. A patch cut from darker cloth covered one knee. Sarah had placed every stitch close enough to stop the winter wind. "Who made this?" Grant asked. Lucy glanced at her mother. "Mama did." "And the cloth?" "Papa's work shirt." Grant's jaw shifted. Ethan Boone had worn that same blue shirt 4 winters earlier, the night a flooded river took him. Ethan had pushed Grant's injured body onto a bank, then vanished beneath broken ice. Grant still woke some nights with river water in his mouth. He had promised Ethan's grave that Sarah and Lucy would never go without food, heat, or decent clothes. On the first day of every month, his ranch office sent $30 to an account at Vale's bank. $30 was more than many families earned in weeks. Yet Lucy stood before him, wrapped in her dead father's shirt. Grant turned to Sarah. "Mrs. Boone, when did the bank last give you the Mercer payment?" Sarah stared at him. Wind rattled the front glass. "What payment?" Grant did not blink. Marjorie's gloved hand slid from her collar. "There must be a mistake," she said. Grant looked at her. "Yes." He drew a small payroll book from his coat. Each page carried a date, a sum, and the mark of Red Willow Bank. 48 payments, 4 years, $1,440. Sarah touched the counter to steady herself. "I never saw $1. Lucy's torn sleeve slipped open. Beneath it, her arm showed white and thin in the cold store. Grant removed his coat. He placed it around her shoulders and fastened the top button. The hem nearly reached her boots. Then he laid the payroll book beside Sarah's 7 pennies. No one laughed now. Only the coal cracked behind the stove's iron door. "Mr. Fletcher," Grant said, "give Mrs. Boone everything on her list. Add boots, coal, and every yard of blue wool you have." Sarah opened her mouth. Grant raised one hand. "It comes from money already owed to her." Marjorie moved toward the door. Grant stepped in front of it. "You are mistaken about one more thing, Mrs. Vale." Her lips parted, but no sound came. Grant reached past her and turned the iron key in the lock. "That old dress did not shame this child," he said. "It showed me a thief." From the back room came the scrape of a boot, followed by the soft click of a window latch. Someone else had been listening. The back window struck the wall with a bang. Grant pulled the key from the front door and crossed the store. Snow blew through the open window. Beyond the alley, a narrow man in a brown coat climbed onto a gray horse. "Noah Finch," Mr. Fletcher said. "He keeps Vale's books." Noah drove his heels into the horse and raced toward the bank. Grant watched him disappear behind the church. Then he turned to Marjorie. "Your husband knows by now." Marjorie's silver pin jumped with each quick breath. "Orson has done nothing wrong." Sarah lifted Grant's payroll book. Her 7 pennies remained beneath it. "Then he can explain where my money went." Lucy stood inside Grant's coat, with only her boots showing below the hem. She reached for her mother's hand. Grant opened the door. "We are going to the bank." No one stayed behind. Mr. Fletcher came first. The miller followed, then 2 ranch wives and the men who had been warming themselves near the stove. By the time Grant crossed Main Street with Sarah and Lucy, 20 people walked behind them. The bank doors were locked. Smoke curled from the chimney, although the building had been cold an hour earlier. Grant struck the oak door with his fist. "Open it, Orson." Metal scraped inside. Orson Vale appeared behind the glass, wearing shirt sleeves and a green vest. A gray mark crossed one cheek. He had been close to soot. "The bank is closed," he called. Grant looked at the smoking chimney. "It is open now." Orson saw the crowd. His eyes moved to Marjorie, who gave the smallest shake of her head. The lock turned. Heat rolled from the bank. A fire roared in the office stove. Curled paper edges glowed behind its iron grate. Grant entered first. He took the poker and pulled the stove door shut. "Burning trash?" he asked. "Old records." Orson buttoned his vest. "Every bank clears its files." "Before breakfast?" Orson walked behind his desk. He opened a drawer and removed a stack of slips tied with red cord. Mrs. Boone received every payment. He spread the slips across the desk. Each one showed $30. Each carried Sarah Boone's name. Whispers passed through the room. Sarah picked up the first slip. Her thumb rubbed the black signature. "I did not write this." Orson leaned back. "A woman may forget what she spent." Sarah's palm struck the desk. The inkwell shook. "My child sleeps beside a stove that dies before dawn. Do not tell me what I forget." Lucy looked up at her. Grant's coat had slipped from one shoulder, showing the torn blue sleeve beneath it. Remember that sleeve. It had brought Grant to this desk, but before noon, it would place him in the path of a moving train. Sheriff Wade Harlan pushed through the crowd. Snow rested across his hat. "What is happening?" Orson gathered the slips. "Mr. Mercer is disturbing my bank over money already paid." Grant handed the sheriff his payroll book. Sarah gave him one of the slips. Harlan compared them, then scratched his jaw. The transfers are clear, so are the receipts. They are forged, Grant said. Can you prove that? Sarah pulled another slip free. The date read April 3rd, 1885. Lucy and I were at the county sick house that entire month. Dr. Ellis kept the entry book. Orson's tongue moved across his lower lip. Grant saw it. Where is Noah Finch? Orson looked toward the stove. I have not seen him. A train whistle cut through the walls. Mr. Fletcher hurried to the window. The westbound freight is pulling in. Marjorie closed her eyes. Grant ran. Lucy pressed both hands to the window. The blue cuff fluttered at her wrist. Sarah stood behind her, one arm around the child, while Orson quietly reached beneath his desk. Sheriff Harlan saw the movement and rested a hand on his holster. He crossed the snowy street and tore his horse loose from the rail. Behind him, Sarah called his name. He swung into the saddle without touching the stirrup. The freight train rolled past the water tower as Grant reached the depot road. Steam covered the platform, wheels hammered the track. Noah Finch ran beside the last boxcar, clutching a red ledger beneath his coat. "Finch!" Grant shouted. Noah caught the iron ladder and pulled himself aboard. Grant bent low over his horse. Snow flew from the animal's hooves. The final car gathered speed. Noah looked back. He drew a small pistol. The shot split the morning. Grant's saddle strap snapped. Leather dropped beneath him. He pushed away from the falling saddle and caught the boxcar ladder with both hands. His boots swung inches above the rails. Ahead, the train entered the black mouth of Red Willow Tunnel. Darkness swallowed the train. Grant's gloves slipped on the frozen ladder. His right boot found a narrow iron rung. He pushed upward as the boxcar shook through the tunnel. Above him, Noah crouched in the open doorway. "Let go!" Noah shouted. The pistol flashed. The bullet struck the ladder beside Grant's hand. Hot metal cut his knuckle. He climbed another rung. Noah backed away and raised the gun again. Grant drove his shoulder into the man's knees. Both men fell across the wooden floor. The red ledger slid toward the open door. Noah grabbed Grant's collar. "Vale will bury us both!" Grant struck his wrist against the floor. The pistol spun beneath a stack of feed sacks. The ledger reached the edge. Grant caught its leather cord with 2 fingers. Snow and smoke rushed below his hand. Noah froze. "That book is your only road home," Grant said. Daylight burst across the car as the train cleared the tunnel. A brakeman on the next car saw them and pulled the alarm line. Wheels screamed. Sparks flew under the boxcars. The train slowed beside a white field. Noah sat against the wall, rubbing his wrist. "I wrote the false slips," he said. "Orson kept the money. Marjorie chose what they bought with it." Grant opened the ledger. Page after page listed payments taken from widows, injured ranch hands, and children whose fathers had died on cattle drives. Beside Sarah's name stood a line written 6 weeks earlier. "Silver brooch for MV, $18. Grant shut the book. When they returned to Red Willow, Sheriff Harlan waited on the depot platform with Orson in handcuffs. Sarah and Lucy stood near the water tower. Grant's coat still covered Lucy's torn dress. Sarah saw blood on Grant's glove. "You found him." Grant lifted the ledger. "He found his voice." Noah stepped down and held out his wrists to the sheriff. The crowd followed them back to the bank. Marjorie stood beside the desk. Her fur collar was gone, but the silver pin remained beneath her chin. Grant placed the ledger before her and opened it to Sarah's page. Marjorie read the line. One hand rose toward the brooch, then stopped.
Lucy watched from beside her mother. "That was bought with Papa's money?" she asked. Marjorie pulled out the pin. It struck the desk and spun beneath the lamp. No one reached for it.
Sheriff Harlan led Orson and Marjorie through the front doors. Their boots crossed the same snow where Lucy had walked with her head lowered that morning. This time, Lucy watched them pass. Inside the vault, deputies found 12 cash boxes marked with family names. Sarah's held $900. The rest had been spent. Another box held letters that had never been delivered. Grant opened one addressed to Sarah. It was his first note after Ethan's burial, written in a shaking hand. Sarah read only the first line before folding it again. She placed it inside Lucy's coat, close to the girl's chest, and faced the open vault without speaking. Grant counted $540 from his own wallet and placed it beside the box. Sarah pushed the bills back. "You already sent it once, and I failed to see where it went." Her hand remained on the money. His rested on the other side. Lucy stepped between them. "Mama, we need thread." Sarah looked down at the open sleeve. A short breath left her nose. "Yes," she said, "we do." That evening, lamplight filled the Boone cabin. Coal burned high in the stove. On the table lay food, boots, blue thread, and 6 yards of wool paid for from Sarah's recovered money. Grant sat near the door while Sarah worked the cloth beneath her needle. Lucy watched each seam take shape. Before Sarah closed the left cuff, Lucy brought her father's old dress from the bed. "Can some of it stay?" Sarah cut one square from the worn sleeve. She sewed it inside the new cuff, where it rested against Lucy's wrist. On Christmas morning, the church bell rang across Red Willow. Families crowded the wooden chapel for the children's song. Lucy entered in her new blue dress. The wool shone under the oil lamps. The old patch remained hidden inside her sleeve. Mr. Fletcher stood. Then the miller rose. One by one, every person in the chapel came to their feet. Sarah sat beside Grant in the front pew. Their shoulders touched. Lucy took a place beneath the pine wreath. She looked at her mother, then at the cowboy whose bandaged hand rested on the rail. The bell stopped. Lucy lifted her chin and sang the first clear note into the winter morning. For more stories from the American frontier, subscribe and ride with the next one.